I was asked to put together a list of the West propaganda and talking points. We actually used to do that because it would help us remember who was from the West myth. And we did trace down quite a lot of these things, but it was way long ago. Most of the problems you see right now are people in denial, and one of the big denials is that there is a war in heaven. And when they think about that, they do not recognize themselves as being part of that war. They run into issues if they're religious and have really rigid belief systems that the war in heaven does not include real-time earth. It's somehow all magically spiritual and there's no physical involved, and nothing could be further from the truth. So besides having that problem, they can't take it to the next step, that they are POWs. This is really outside people's belief systems. They see the problems we're having in government, but they rarely attribute it to ET intrusions. And they don't understand that there are these really evil entities. And the people that are all for ETs refuse to accept that they could be wrong. One gentleman posted recently, I could not understand what his issue was until it came out that he was with a particularly named group, and they had built the bridge for Ra. And, he has no idea, as a follower, about the people that were taken here. And he has no idea about Michael Aquino or the snuff factory. He thinks it's all separate. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Ells and Owls were aiding the Satanists, the Freemasons, Chase Bank, the Vatican. These were all involved in trafficking, politics, and land grabs. The people who are all about flat earth and round earth, they can't imagine a new earth. And this is the same issue with even the religious people. They get really rigid beliefs until they get to something like everyone moves to a new earth, and then they can't grasp it. It falls off. Another thing the population is really in denial of is that they could pull souls and that they could replace souls, and things like this have been going on for quite a long time. People are really having issues about understanding that they are in a construct. They want to argue whether it's round or flat and not understand it is not real. The way it was explained to us, because we didn't have, I suppose, those types of rigid belief systems, you're in a construct and they view it as a movie from the event monitors. And it actually wasn't until I was pulled out that, oh yeah, you can be pulled in and out. And other people are starting to find that out too. Now, these aren't super soldiers. These are moms and dads and housewives, people with rigid belief systems have a really, really hard time. Now, it's not just people who are religious, it is political beliefs too. These people who are far left who simply cannot take the truth. I was watching Tim Cast interview a gentleman from the left, and he said when he got red-pilled that he actually felt physical pain when he found out he had been lied to. He was deeply, deeply hurt. And then you've got the truly religious, like the jihad, and those who believe it can only go down the Revelation book exactly, or it's not real. These are people who have rigid belief systems that cannot tolerate the truth. We're hearing that a number of these are going to be pulled now.
Religion? Jewish? Okay, go to room 21, but be very quiet when you pass room 8. Muslim? Okay, go to room 50, but be very quiet when you pass room 8. Agnostic? Okay, go to room 71, but be very quiet when you pass room 8. Why must we all be quiet when we pass room 8? Oh, the Catholics are in room 8, but they think they're the only ones here.
Do you guys have any Republican friends?
No, thank God.
Do you have any Republican friends?
No.
Why not?
I wouldn't be friends with someone who's Republican.
Why is that?
I don't like that kind of extremism.
Why do you think you don't have any Republican friends?
Because we're at NYU.
We stay away from those people.
Nice.
Probably Republican as well.
Probably not.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump. That's not going to happen.
Donald Trump will not become president.
He's not going to be president. Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
Okay.
I guarantee it.
All right.
I think that man will be president of the United States right about the time that spaceships come down filled with dinosaurs and red capes.
I'm not surprising, since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
He will never be president of the United States.
You're not going to be president, all right?
Donald Trump will never, ever be president of the United States.
At least I will go down as a president.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is.
I've been asked once again about soul, spirit, spiritual path. Although humans can't know everything, I can only recap what's been said in the past. And you have to remember their explanations are based on someone who wasn't religiously trained. So the hand is your spirit. This is eternal. The soul is a little light. This is not eternal. A soul starts off very basic, personality and things like this. They often call it a mirror. It's a mirror of the spirit. But you grow very slowly over time through experience, memory, and most of it, if you think about it, is relationships and family. How you deal with mother, parent, father, child. So all of this memory and all of this experience guides you as you grow as a being from something primitive to something more advanced. You are more or less the child of the spirit. Its task is to raise you through all these phases to either a negative or a positive charge. By the end of the cycle, you have to have a certain amount of weight to get through the gate. One on the east gate is higher and the lower one on the west gate. But either one, you had to be a certain amount of spiritual fat. And this is the energy that is gained through experience and memory and heart. Elves and elves are stealing souls. If a spirit had no more incarnates left, it was stranded here. It could not move forward. So if you think of a soul as a flower with petals, every time a debt is owed, they take a petal as payment. When a soul had debt, a debt to life, it was paid for by spiritual fat. What the priesthood did was put a spell on the money, and it redirected your spiritual fat to the priesthood, so they could kill, maim, rape, whatever they wanted in great numbers, and it was all able to pay for it, and it allowed them to move forward. While as the person who is stripped of spiritual fat, they have no ability to move forward. That's an estoppel. That's what we call being damned. It is an end for that soul. They merged another lower timeline recently, saying that it was their last chance to be able to gain enough spiritual fat to move forward. Part of this is your learning curve and whether you're able to make the choice and who you follow, and that's it. You had to gain enough fat. You had to be able to recognize it. Some people don't recognize evil. They walk right by it. Once you're on the exit, however, you'll notice attacks coming. They'll try and take your home. They'll throw all kinds of roadblocks up in front of you, your job, whatever they can hit you with. And it's the system doing it because it knows you're leaving now. It's a sad way to know that you've got the up, but you're moving forward and the system knows you're leaving, so it does an attack. And I mention that because I've had people recently ask me about these things. We used to have a saying, their missiles miss none.
They'll squint at you when they're irritated with you. I remember that. But I remember the ones on the ship when I was in the Dark Fleet, they look similar to a Skeksis, but reptile-like. Hunchback. They wore robes that drug behind them. Or I'm guessing that concealed their tail. I remember the robes would, they looked like they had like, I don't know, hieroglyphics on them or something, or runes. But they almost shimmered and kind of moved in a way where they almost seemed like there was holograms coming out of them. It was almost like, it looked like a mix between scales just being on the, not actual scales, but scales being embroidered or whatever into the material, but also just like hieroglyphics as well. And it seemed to shift and phase and move. And I remember you could just stare at them almost and get hypnotized by them, almost the way you'd get like hypnotized by a fire. Just like looking at these things' robes. But then, like I said, I saw a Kino. I remember one of the guys on base told me that, just out of the blue, he said, hey, Daryl, you know, Johnson, or whatever the guy's name, told me that there's some kind of machine where they can extract a soul out of your body. But it has to be done before puberty for some reason. But it can't be done too young, like 2 or 3, because the body's mostly sedentary, so the body would die. It would be too young. The bones would become too brittle. So they have to wait till they're about 9 or 10, and they can extract the consciousness out of this body, and then it can be, something else can go into it, almost like an astral projection of this body or something. And he told me that's what happened to Aquino. I said, well, what happened to the original soul? And he said, I don't know. That kind of freaked me out. But yeah, I got to see Aquino, and that's exactly what it was. It was some sort of like, he told me he was a native inhabitant of Earth, but he was like a reptile. He told me that he was once worshipped in Egypt, ancient Egypt, and he looked like a snake pretty much. He looked like a snake's head coming out of like, he wore a hood, like a red hood with a red robe. I think there might have been like runes or hieroglyphics kind of like around the robe, around the hood. But yeah, he looked pretty much like a snake guy. And he told me he was pure black. He had very like big, thick scales, like in the sense that they were kind of like lumpy. He kind of looked almost lumpy. He had like these big scales all over him. And he was shiny black, like onyx. He was almost like a mirror. He was so shiny black. And I remember I asked him things like, "Do you shed?" And that was insulting to him. He said, "No, I don't shed." Because I told him he looked like a freshly shed snake. And I asked him to take off his hood so I could get a better look at him. And he said no. And he was very obsessed with me calling him sir. It was almost weird. He was almost more like seemed like he almost had like a personality disorder, this reptile, where he thought he was a Kino. Like he seemed to think like he was more a Kino than he was whatever this reptile was. And like I said, whenever you get out of the process of being pushed back down to the third density, it's like you go through almost like an amnesia. The last thing I think I can remember at the time was being picked up from the airport by a first-class petty officer and going to McDonald's in Newquay, England. I think that's like the first thing I remember. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm being tortured by like these snake monsters or whatever, these reptile things, and there's like guys in black cloaks in this room, and so I really didn't know what was happening. So I wasn't calling him sir. I don't know what I was thinking. But it was weird. It was this. He kept on wanting me to refer to him as an army officer, and it was like he kind of thought he was more a Kino than he thought whatever he was. I'm not really sure how to explain it.
And me and the Clintons.
So on this drawing over here that I had an artist put together using some of your help, we have a Kruger lab with a Draco in here that is using some kind of psi programming on this clone body. You want to explain a little bit what's going on here?
So in the bed you're seeing in that picture, what's happening is a lot of times that's usually your 1.0 body, but it can be your 2.0 as well, depending upon what's going on. What typically happens is the reason why we use a clone 2.0 body is that if you ever die out there, the soul fragment that Draco is actually twinking with, messing with, eventually rehomes back to your 1.0 body, and it will call a rehoming process. And what they can do is they can take that sliver of you and then put it back into a new 2.0 body. And they can go, okay, now that you screwed up last time, now we have a safe place. You know what to expect this time around, so go get them again. And they end up sending out that exact same set of guys out to go after the target yet again. Now they have more updated intel. And in many cases, what that Draco is doing is he's trying to make sure that whatever that data is there, is encapsulated. It does not have the ability to go outside of that encapsulation or breach containment. And a lot of times what he's also doing is he's installing what they call omega level programming, which means that if you were to talk about it, you would actually self-terminate. And in my case, when I first got put under PHR, I had to have 3 of those layers, those omega level programming options removed. And because that announcement, some other voice came through me and made that announcement that was going to happen. So they're basically what he's doing there is they're looking at the body, they're repairing the body, they're making sure it's optimal, and he's making sure that that new rehomed essence, is what they call it in the programs, is actually encapsulated and contained correctly and psychically.
When I spoke about the keys in the last video, a comment came back in Spanish, and it basically said, "The creatures just like to make straw baskets, you silly thing." The level of ignorance in our societies, uneducated I mean, is really a problem when it comes to talking about these instances. The technology has always been there, and this is quite obvious. It's also obvious that heaven does it better. Their plans when they remove a soul are not nefarious. They don't split and fracture souls. When the soul is removed, what can be slipped in by the West is an AI, and this is what we call NPCs. No matter what the individual was, the personalities from the West start to become more negative, and this is noticed, and why many family members are separated. It's a safety measure. As soon as an individual has enough fat, they're moved. So they do pull souls along a path, and to get them all in a group and bundle them together. And they lead them on these paths by pushes and pulls, thoughts and emotions, and a lot of manipulation by the West. Because we are in the West, and they had the most prolific amount of propagandists out there. They were far more prolific than the East was. All the contactees that had Stockholm Syndrome and all the other channeling people that are so into the ETs and claiming these are great people are actually talking to the underworld. And it's all these political and religious prompts that are keeping people very tied to and focused on their programming here, and so they don't see anything further. For instance, there's the AIs. Lilu's using a baby's brain, and Sophia was trying to tie into baby fetuses. These are very self-serving AI. And of course the humans, like Lisa and others, they don't really grasp that there's anything wrong. The one thing, none of the things from the West will talk about is the war in heaven, because they lost. And every time they break a deal or break a treaty, they have forfeits, and they accumulate more debt. And more debt means more forfeits. And so they've made a lot of forfeits. These forfeits are to the benefit of heaven and the tree of life. It's easy to have sympathy for the humans that are being pulled along these paths. I did have sympathy for Venus's people on the West Gate, especially when you hear about children. But they didn't get there by accident. They got there by their choices. And this is what you see going on right now here on Earth. There are simply quite a number of people on the far left. I do read comments. I do try to reply, except when I'm working on a project. And there are some things that, you know, people come across in blogs and other sites, and some are really basic, and others are really, really outrageous. I think the worst one I heard recently was Donald Trump being part of the Black Sun coven. So if you're looking for an answer to a question, it might already be there in the comments, and you can just scroll through it and read. So I was asked why I added NESARA to the list. The West always says, never waste a good crisis, but the East has their own means as well. I was rather rooting for NESARA because I knew the trick of the birth certificate. But what it turned out to be was an opportunity for the Allies to insert people in there in order to break the spells on the money. I can remember them telling me that when they got home, that they would dream about it at night, and as they saw the numbers, they saw the black wisp of the smoke coming off them. That was the spell breaking. They labored many hours doing this, and so all of their work had meaning. NESARA itself, though, it turns out, did not. And this was actually brought up when Miss Grogan talked about Rothschild telling her it was just a carrot. It wasn't real. Money system is part of the Babylon system, and it is actually the only part they're still allowed to keep, because these are people that cannot grasp how to extend credit to another human being, how to put the value on the living human being rather than a rock or a mineral. They don't understand. So they have to have the accountant style pin pushing money. However, NESARA does not go to the middle ground. I believe it's because it's tied to ETs. Miss Grogan isn't on the middle ground path with the Trump followers. I also added Medbed's technology because what they showed in the movie Elysium used light. What these are using is black goo that has been altered, but it is still black goo. Black goo stays in the West. It does not go to the middle ground. It does not go in heaven.
All right. So I've got a list of the different types of goos that they have. See if I can pull this up for the audience here. Give me a moment. You know what? I'm also going to try to see if I can locate the Elysium. Oh, okay. So how about we do this first? See if I can make this bigger. Okay, I'll just read it. Blue goo is for healing. Yellow goo is for tanks used for stasis. Green goo is for healing and augmentation. Pink goo is for prolonged stasis. Fluorescent yellow-green goo is a mixture used for healing of the Hulk clone bodies. Black goo is used for terraforming planets, but it quickly can become out of control. So that's a huge problem. Red goo is used to convert you into a cyborg. And also translucent opal is for memory wiping. So you said you were injected with black and red goo, correct?
Blue, black, and a little bit of red. I don't know what the red one does. I know the blue one is for mind control, and the black one is for physical strength, like physical enhancement.
Okay. And let's see here. So I guess I was trying to find a good picture of the Elysium Medbed.
Physical enhancement.
Let me pull up my screen share here. For folks that you haven't seen the movie, you should watch it. I think it's worthwhile. So we've got this is more. So this is what it was showed in the movie. I don't know if you can see that, but oh, and of course they're gonna take you there. Okay, so do you think we'll see this technology released to humanity sometime soon, to the public sector?
Not anytime soon.
Why is that?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but I don't think they're gonna let it. I think it when we become a little bit lighter, yeah, actually a lot lighter.
Yeah, well, I was hearing through one source 2028, but that would probably be close to the solar flash era where everything changes for humanity. Alana Kapoling thinks it's going to be more like 2050. And that's because a lot of the elites who are in charge of it, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Yeah, they want to depopulate. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So,
possibility. Yeah, I believe so.
What about, and this question has been coming up over and over again about med beds. Do you have any idea when that's going to be coming out to the public?
Between now and 2024, I believe, because according to the vision that I had 15 years ago, when I was connected to my galactic self, which oversees a mothership known as the New Jerusalem, I was able to access like a future, like a time frame where when the Earth was actually going to be reinstated back into the galactic community, and I was told by no later than 2024. So we'll see what happens. We're 2 years away.
This hypothesis is just more of a lie. They thought that if they could get you to believe that they were here first and to give them the planet, they could slide in under the law and take possession of Earth and override humanity's right to their own world. What actually has happened is that Earth was forfeited and humanity gets to keep and move Earth. Most of the people who move west, they get a memory wipe. So they don't remember that we left. For them, it'll seem like a seamless timeline. For instance, whoever is in Donald Trump's position, they just alter the name and the person, and it fits seamlessly into whatever skit they had set up. So if they set up an Antichrist as a president, that would follow into the next skit, and they just move the actor. By the same token, no one from the East is going to leave them anything of man's DNA. That's the purpose of the fire, is to remove that. There will be no men in the West. So those who are such great admirers of the ETs from the West become themselves the ETs in the West. And the elites and such that are left here are basically left with nothing. All the water is removed, all the power will be removed. They'll have virtually no food, and this is the path that ends with a nova.
Final story is about climate change. Scientists have tried explaining it for years. They've given lectures, they've published papers, but none of it has really moved our world leaders. Maybe pictures will. Take a look at the first set. It may look like a desert, but it's not. What you're looking at is a reservoir in Spain. 84% empty. You can see the paddle boats and water slides abandoned nearby. Aquatic life driven to death. The reason? Climate change. Spain had its hottest July since 1961. Some parts of the Iberian Peninsula are at their driest in 1200 years. Let that sink in. 1200 years. Now for the next set of pictures. What you're looking at is Italy's longest river, River Po. Large sandbanks have started appearing around it. Why? Again, climate change. This region is facing its worst drought in 70 years. See those beautiful sand plains? What if I told you those are not plains? What you're looking at is a dried up river. Not a single drop of water remains. All the tourist boats have been beached as a result. The restaurants nearby have nearly shut. The reason? Our next set of pictures will give you an idea. Wildfires are raging across southwestern France. Nearly 6,000 hectares of forests have been burnt. This blaze follows two wildfires in the month of July. Put together, they scorched more than 20,000 hectares. What do these pictures tell you? A crisis of biblical proportions. You've seen the pictures, now let me show you the data. 63% of land in Britain and Europe is facing drought. 63%. That's almost the size of India. 46% of the land is under warning. 17% under a state of alert. It's a perfect climate storm. The rains have reduced to a trickle. The temperatures have hit multi-decade highs. As a result, Europe's rivers are drying. The reservoirs barely have any water left. And the situation is the same across the continent. Southern England had its driest July since 1836. Overall, it was Britain's driest July in 20 years. The government has declared amber alert for the next 4 days. Temperatures are so high it could trigger fires. In France, they already have. It was their driest July since records began in 1959. 3 countries breached 40 degrees Celsius last month: Spain, France and the UK. Now remember, we're talking about Europe. Their summers are supposed to be pleasant and cheery. It's supposed to be the travel season. Instead, Europe is literally baking. Those are the mighty rivers of Europe, now reduced to dried sand beds. Without their water, Europe cannot grow food, it cannot transport cargo, it cannot even generate electricity. Western Europe's hydropower output was down 20% in the second quarter of this year. How is Europe planning to tackle this crisis? Each government has announced its own measures. France, for instance, has set up a crisis team. Their main priority is ensuring drinking water. Reports say 100 French municipalities are short of drinking water. Italy has declared a drought emergency. Water rationing has been announced in cities like Verona and Pisa. Rice production has been hit. Farmers are unable to produce enough rice for the famous Italian risotto. The Netherlands has declared a nationwide water shortage. People have been asked to take quicker showers, also not to wash their cars or water their gardens. In Germany, all the focus is on the Rhine. It is the financial heartbeat of Germany. You see, the Rhine requires a basic water level to support shipping. If it falls below that, ships cannot pass. Germany says it is days away from falling below that level. Freight ships are already sailing at 25% capacity. If this is not an emergency, I don't know what is. The pictures, the data, the testimonies, all of them hint at a climate emergency in Europe. It is not some distant threat anymore. It is very much here. And as we prepare to enter the winter season, more questions remain. Yes, the heat will disappear, but what climatic shock will winter behold?
A long time ago, they told us it was not their intention to fix this place because that's not how things actually work. Each division has a share, and each portion has part of the mat, and they pull the mat all at one time. All the divisions go at the same time. What is left behind is a husk. Not even a blade of grass is forgotten. And so the husk and all the trash with it goes into the trash can, which is the pit. I heard a political debate today where a man was talking to the youth at a college, these very woke people, and he told the young man that he was naive and sophomoric. And when you think about it, and you think about the man with Ross Bridge, as well as Miss Harrison with Lilu's AI, humans can be very naive, and we never really know that the person we thought of as a friend was actually a predator behind our back with other people that we didn't see. That's actually a leading method in incest and pedophiles. They're very good at hiding. So all the hammering in MSM, it's an attempt to expose it very large and in your face so that people will make their choice. And remember, you had to have a certain amount of spiritual fat to make it through the gate. As in any war, there were prisoner of war exchanges and people like this that are still being released to be moved forward. And so not only will the system attack you when he thinks you're moving forward, they'll also use lures quick and easy money. Sometimes you find out, oh look, I won the lottery. Or isn't that the best job ever? Let's go for that. Anything it can do to distract you from exiting. However, most humans know about voting. Here, they don't know that they actually vote upstairs as well. So while all the propaganda is hitting the MSM, people are actually making their choices known. Getting the population to choose to overturn Roe versus Wade was a big thing. It removed a lot of the food source that the Moloch are using, and that weakened their hold greatly. Your choices and what you think matter, and this is something that I've tried to explain. The newly created middle ground area is absolutely beautiful, and I was so thrilled to hear all the good news about how many people made it up. Now on the east side it's pristine. There's no Babylon save system, no corporate government, religion, or money or baking. But they also have no electricity. I believe it's because the frequency is higher, and anyone that knows electrical systems knows that a higher frequency would cancel out electricity. So they'll have to have new technology based on a new discovery of a new power source at a higher frequency rate. But it's very peaceful. It doesn't sound like they have any crime at all. And when they're ready, they'll be promoted up. The west side is a bit different. It still has evil. And the reason this is so is because it still has a money system. Along with that, you can have things like pot, and you'll still have crime. It will never be the level of crime we have now. It will be a hard moral reset. They will be shown the videos and the Gitmo tapes, and so they'll be made fully aware, if they weren't already. They'll find out about the underground. That's why I don't think that they're going to have ET contact, because ETs were the reason all this was going on. They will have Mars and Venus for their expansion into space to colonize space. They'll have their real space flights, and it won't be fake anymore. But they also have a renewed world, and not as many numbers as they had. President Trump put in a new money system, and that's all there. They have a new voting system. Everyone goes back to the organic constitutions of their nations. It looks like Australia joined the United States. If you remember, a lot of family members couldn't make it to the higher gate, and so they ended up in the middle ground. It looks like there is going to be interaction between the East and the middle ground. I believe Mark Taylor was right in his descriptions and things like this, because as all the forfeitures add up, it's coming out exactly as he said it would. They're still confronted with evil, but I don't think that they can be confronted with the people on the lower order of the true West Gate. However, he did say that they would be taught spiritual warfare on a new level. And I do believe that's already starting.
The Saudi Arabian government created a special anti-witchcraft unit to educate the public about ghosts, apparitions, sorcery, and how to investigate alleged witches and disarm their spells.
in the past, we had a problem with people removing their seals on the subconscious level. All the branch parents were represented except mankind's branch, which is the one. So all the seals were going to the west more than they were going to the east. So when I got the good news, I was really ecstatic. They actually had enough people to make 2 new branches of mankind. And this is really exceptional, because this place really was a zoo, and there are a lot of different races here that were orphaned. So all of these people now are getting lifted up. This is what Eve and the Tree of Life did for us by lawing all good up. So we now have 3 branches in heaven of mankind and 7 other branches. And I know humans went to the other branches there as well. I just think that's amazing. So by the grace of the all, every human that's leaving and moving east will have a family and someone there waiting for you who loves you, and you can count on it. You may or may not remember them now, but you will the minute you stand. So among the 3 branches, the first branch is the One, the next branch is Jesus, and the 3rd branch is the one Ison is on, which forms after we leave. People often ask why I use these images. After all, they're just graphics. The sky isn't real. And I have to remind you that they use the graphics, and they send you messages, and they let you see things. You are still a POW in the West until moved. There are still enemies actively trying to prevent you from moving. There are also specific laws of the West that they have to follow. They showed on camera that Jesus' branch formed in March. Now this is the branch they're building. There are other places on the images where you can see him actually moving around, working on the branch as they build it there. And you can see rings and people working on it when you blow it back out. Now he does form and grow into a very large plaque right there, forming the branch. For a long time you could see him sorting the people going into the eye or the mouth below him. So all of this was sorted and done months ago, back in March. And the branch proceeded off the page. From what I can understand, all the stars along this line all are heading to the right and going in with Ison, and this is part of his branch that's forming. And for all you turtle racers, we've been rooting for camera B as it's floated all the way across the page and made it all the way in, and we're going to keep it. Now, if you haven't been outside, you really should. The masking is failing, and you really should take time to notice the details that are now showing up. You should notice they're watching you, and you should go out and notice them. Heaven is a real place, and you should acknowledge that they are there. Go outside and have a chat. For some people, it's just a matter of getting them to take that first step on the stair to go up. Look up and direct your questions to heaven. They do answer. For the rest of us, we've climbed the stair, and they've given the order, prepare to stand. Those going with mankind are about to leave. Everyone on the east exit has packed up. They've gotten hold of their avatars, and the real Earth is waiting. The subconscious mind recognizes instantly when you're out. It was the first words I said, I'm out. So you know instantly you're out of the hologram and back into the real world. You still have your memory of here, and you'll have the memory that you gained from being there as well, because we've been operating in 2 different locations. Memory wipes were part of the method to keep you safe during the war, and that won't be necessary when you move. We have advanced cities, we also have countryside, and we have the most pristine, beautiful places you could ever imagine. It's more than one world. We have plants and animals we've never seen before. And all of this is going to be very fun to explore. We have a gate system, and you have multiple ways of travel. Yeah, I mean, we do have trains. They're not the same kind of trains as we have here, unless they're on an antique show. And we do have those antique shows. And we have a museum of our real history with no bogus inserts, so we'll know our history. We also have a beautiful convention center that has some really spectacular tech. Everyone always goes over there, and it's like a holiday. Looking at the boats and the ships and everything like that. Androids. We have androids. The good androids and the AIs that were here came with us if they were good and they were allowed through the gate. Everything takes the same type of test. Everything is weighed to make sure it can go through. But we've heard some really fantastic things. Our oceans don't have any man-eaters like sharks and crocodiles and alligators in the waterways. We don't have that. No snakes. I'm pretty sure there's no venomous spiders. We don't have any of the pest insects that plague us here, like mosquitoes and fleas and ticks and that sort of thing. A lot of our pet friends moved with us, and for a lot of us, those who left early are actually waiting for us on the other side. They're actually asked, and some say yes. Others I know of go back to being with their own tribes. They're a little bit more advanced. And although we might have interactions with them, they're not really our pets at that point. They do, however, remain our lifelong friends. Moving up a scale also means we physically get larger, our world gets larger, which means our pets and everything are also larger. We no longer have an ego or a reptile brain. We do have telepathy, and we learn other abilities as well. We have fantastical cities and schools we built under the sea for marine biology. Because there's so many new things to explore, I'm quite sure cryptozoology is doing well and fine. Although we don't have any interaction with ETs, we have millions of worlds of men to meet. Brothers and sisters on different branches or the same branch that we've never met before. That's our Star Trek in the next book. And of course, before we get to the Book of Life, we have our Year of the Gathering. We'll have our new bodies and be fit and well and able to visit, and we'll still have our memory. They are talking about the parades and the party right now. Everybody has family members we don't remember right now, but we will the minute we stand up. And that's when all the questions you have to me are actually answered in a far better, more enlightened way by your own memory. Because you see, you know all of this, and you've always known all of this. Even though they erased your conscious mind, they couldn't erase the subconscious mind. It's only due to the war and how dangerous it's been, and that's why you don't remember now. So the people moving east have a lot to look forward to, and as Donald Trump said, the best is yet to come.